to other people on the track. Obviously, Novatech. Oh, I'm still talking about running into Novatech, which is... I need more stuff to talk about. So there we have it, guys. We have 18 people running into the mature than the original word. That is very, very true. That is very, very true. Because we are still above the watershed, so if you are live on Channel 4, like I am, please do not swear. However, we have got ourselves... Everyone's still more or less in the garage, but I think there's going to be a few people coming out very, very soon. This is a track where you need some decent... It looks like one of the McLarens is coming up first, and it is John. So, F123, literally red flags have been added, which, you know what, I think it's brings it a little bit closer to real life, but watch a load of people have red flags in the game, and then they just complain. It is kind of inevitable, but what I do think is nice that they've done a bit of a mix between my team and Breaking Point by having Devon Butler basically have a whole new team built around him, and funny enough, with Aiden Jackson as his teammate. And what I will say about Breaking Point is that it did the whole kind of rivalry within the context of Formula 1 pretty well, with Devon Butler driving a wedge between the two protagonists, but all sense of like political play, using social media and dirty tactics and whatnot. But it's just the kind of villainy you expect from Formula 1 drivers, it has to be said. Curious enough, John out on the medium tyre, so I'm just going to get to the tyre graphics there. Apologies for that. I am looking forward to. Oh god, it says a lot that I'm looking forward to F123 for the story of all things. That does say a lot, because it's safe to say that supercars didn't exactly hit the mark in terms of what they were going for. Good chance to show off other brands, and 35% races, which I think that was closer to what esports used to do before they revamped it into the 50-50 format that we know now. But anywho, we'll get back onto F123 later, because this is going to be John's first qualifying lap. The first sort of benchmark for this qualifying session in Saudi Arabia. Coming down into the first sector, just before the 100-meter board, into turn 2 straight away. You've got to straighten up the car, keep it in high gear, just to make sure that you keep the traction where you want it to be. How you doing, Songog? Great to see you as always. Nice tidy line, but a little bit conservative in his entry points there. This is quite deceptive, and it's quite easy to lose the car when you give it a little bit too much throttle, especially with some of these curbs and how punishing I think they can all be if you take too much with them. 32.7 is the first sector time. So we have Johnny B as well. How are you doing? Great to see you as always. I feel like that's one of my catchphrases in these streams. Come on to John for how he takes sector 2. Takes it very, very tidy. I have to say his lines are pretty much right, even if his lines are a little bit more conservative than what we would normally used to in the summer, going flat out. But that said, he is doing this on the medium tyre. The strategy for this track is pretty... Oh, and he's invalidated with that. So that's a bit of an anticlimax, it has to be said. I think the next one out, I believe, is Richie M, who's also invalidated. I think Trollabolo might be the next one on a timed lap. Yep, it is Trollabolo. So we're going to go aboard with him, picking up where John left off. 1 minute 2.5, so a little bit off from what John did. We're still looking very tidy in that AlphaTauri. It comes down into the second of 3 DRS zones that you're going to encounter on this track. It does provide some very close racing and brilliant opportunity for people to save some ERS going into this track. And this is a track that really demands that ability to save energy. So then we have the first benchmark for Trollabo, which is a 30.5. I think Deflated Wee is still in the pit, so obviously Richie had his time invalidated. He won't quite get one there. Prev is the next one to come across the line, but he's starting us up. But Richard goes to the lead first off with a 29.4, so he's got himself a second buffer with everybody else. Hon Spice, how are you doing? Great to see you the first time on the chat. So first of all, obviously welcome to IIRL. I hope you... By the way, how did you find us? It'll be interesting to know where you sort of came from and how you came across the IRL channel. We always love having new people join us here. But obviously, thank you for starting to give up a little bit of your time to watch qualifying session for this league race. IRL Padge is on an outlap himself, and with Tekers Alicas, that's his name, Tekers Alicas. God, I'm terrible with this. So he's obviously on his outlap, where his teammate Colucci has gone third with 30.8. Damon is... Okay, we'll go on board with Damon, see how he's doing. Yellow's in Sector 3 as the Ferrari tries to stay out of the way. Hone Spice has got... Oh, he's been recruited by Padge. Spice races in 82. Oh, he does. Apologies for that. So, I wasn't available to attend the next race, so I apologise for that. But great to see you, obviously joining so in. And how did your race go at Monaco? Hopefully went pretty well. With Damon coming across the line, he goes second with a 29.7. We'll go on board with Prev next. He's the next one to come across the start-finish straight. But, yeah, it looks like he's obviously abandoned his first run because there's a 34.3, so he's clearly run wide. At some point he was wrong. We'll stay on board with the Mercedes to see how well he does. A little bit tight going through that, going through those two corners there. I have to say it was a little bit nicer taken by John. Yellow's once again in Sector 1 and 2 as the Haas tries to stay out of the way. That must be Richie. But these set of corners, it's one after another. I don't know if you played my team on this game, but when you're doing the track acclimatization challenge, it's very akin to giving you PTSD. With the 33.0 on Prev's time, it's a little bit down on what Trollabolo did. More Yellows in Sector 2's car behind, and we've seen that we've got a little bit of a spinner back there, and pretty tidy runtime there, it has to be from Prev. He's still got the car within track limits. The RS now open. I know they've winded out these walls quite considerably for the 23 track. It was a 1 minute 2.1. Looking very steady so far from the Mercedes. We might not expect him to be on the same pace as his teammates. Quite a lot of people now are sitting outside of sitting in the pits, and they haven't set a time though, so it looks like they're just waiting for the track to rub in, and maybe that's just how confident they're feeling. But Prev comes across the line in his Mercedes. Looks like it's going to be a 29.9. I thought it was going to be 1 minute 30, but John goes fastest with a 29.2 on the medium compound tyre. 32.4 for 10.10. How you doing, Rids? We're in the middle of 10.10's lap at the moment. It's 1 minute 1.3. So compare that to what Prev done. Got 7/10 faster. So you can expect him to go into the lead with this. I think it was quite telling that John was able to do that on the medium tyre. Let's see how much of a gap 10.10 has to John, and we'll see how well the Scott's currently doing. He's currently 42 points ahead in the World Championship. Comes across the line and does a 28.7. So as you can see, fairly sizable advantage there. I think it was a strong lap overall from 10.10. That should comfortably see him through into Q2. Which others in Sector 2 as people continue to stay out of each other's way. And we've got a lot of people now coming out for their outlaps. I think Wiggles will be the first one of this bunch to do so. Now, if you missed on the... Oh, Johnny B, if you thought the stream looked bad, thank you so much for that. It's a really nice compliment for you to say, and hopefully you'll enjoy it when the race comes around going forward. So, I'm serious, really nice comment to receive. We're going to go on board, though, with Mr. Wiggles, and Damon and Prev have had a bit of a coming to there, so not quite sure what happened there. Hopefully, someone will be able to pick that up. How you doing, Goldilocks? Thank you for sponsoring the streams last week for Monaco. I'm sure that everybody got their money's worth in terms of entertainment. Anyway, we're going to go back on board with Mr. Wiggles, who is coming through the long sections of S's now, literally one corner after another. Oh, and he's lost it, sadly. And that is going to be... That's going to add a bit more time to Wiggles' session than he ideally would have wanted. And very sensibly, he stays out of the way of the Alpine, of the Alfa Romeo, rather, or Smaller Smiley, who's done a 33-1 in the first sector. So quite a bit down on what the leaders are doing. And then again, he is on the medium tyre. Does take a little bit more time to bite into the surface. So, we're going to stay on board with him and see how well he does. Smaller Smiley's had a very good couple of races, taking almost a liberty there with the track limits, but was able to get away with it. 1010 obviously retires from the session. He's clearly confident that his lap will get him through into the next qualifying session. 1 minute 2.8. So, you're probably looking at about, hopefully, a mid to high 1 minute 29. So it's not going to be quite there with John unless he has an absolute worldie of a final sector. He comes down into the hairpin now. It's quite deceiving on this exit. You think you could take it flat out, but you just can't. Just ask Max Verstappen and Nicholas Latifi. But what does Smaller Smiley do as he comes across the line? It's a 29.7, so all things considered, really decent time. I think a Mercedes coming behind her. That must be Wiggles. Yes, it is. So, next one will be Greg, who's done 1 minute 2.5. He's got quite a bit to do. So, it's not going to be the fastest lap in the world. And it's a 30.5. So Tekers is on his out lap. Colucci is he's not on a time lap. Well, he's not on a representative lap, I think. So who else is out on the... Oh, so Girthy Steve has actually gone to third for the Alpine with a 29.4. Solid time from there. Obviously, Deflated Wee has not yet left the pits. In fact, he has... tried to settle that, but invalidated. So he's got to come back. He's got to come back in and put in a new set of soft compound tyres. Let's go on board with Tekker's Alec. Oh, that's such a confusing name. Tekker's Alicas. And that is... He didn't quite get the apex right there. That really affected his exit. As you can see, the McLaren stays out of the way. That must be Greg. So very sensible from him. Just with these... I mean, while these straights are a bit bendy, they are stretching the definition of turns to an extent because, well, all you're doing is a slight turn of the wheel. One of the Ferraris had wing damage, so that must have been Colucci. Because from what I can see from Tekker's, his front wing looks okay. Turns in quite early, a little bit tentative, but that doesn't quite help his exit as almost like he understeered there and he almost had to spend a bit of time correcting as Tekker's comes into the pits now. We'll go on board with Padge, who's on his out lap. A lot of people involved in management as well. But we always like to see this man do well. For, you could argue without for him, there wouldn't really be IIRL. So let's go on board with Padge in the Alfa Romeo. Let's see how well he does. Just about gets the braking right. A little bit of understeer in the right-hander. It looks very tiny so far from the Alfa Romeo. Upshifts very early, I think, just to give him a bit of peace of mind. And upshifts early again into 6th. But that's going to stop the car from spinning out. It's very tidy so far from Padge. Well, it depends how quick you can get on the power. Yeah, and that was relatively straightforward. So 33 flat, though, for first sector. He's 4/10 up at his best. So he's currently on track to go, hopefully, into the 1 minute 29s. As you can see, quite a few people now coming onto their outlaps. And they need to set a time. Now, as we see, was that Wiggles that made another spin? Yep. either there must have been Wiggles or Prev. No, I think it was Wiggles. Had just lost some time in the second sector, so he's dropped down to only 0.2 above his best. Wiggles isn't too far behind, so we'll see how well he's doing. Girthy Steve has just retired from the session. This Padge goes down into the hairpin. Now, what can he do? He looked relatively tight in that final sector. He's coming into the pits. So that wasn't particularly tidy from him. It's 1 minute 42. So it looks like Wiggles needed that extra crawl-up lap. But he's going to be an interesting well. Josh, how are you doing? 32.5 for a first sector from Wiggles. So looking relatively safe for now. He's just got to take these next few corners with a little bit extra caution. He does not have a representative banker lap. So he's got to make sure he doesn't lose the car in any way. DRS is now open, hugging the insides of those long, long bends that some reason the FIA have a nerve to call a corner. 1 minute, oh, and just as I say that, in the twinkling of an eye, Mr. Wiggles has lost the back end yet again in his car, and that is going to be it. Wiggles, I don't think he's going to get another time, because he lost it in one of the worst possible places. Small Smiley retires from the session, whereas Wiggles, as far as his fight with John John's concerned, and possibly for the championship, has got it all to do in Saudi Arabia. We'll go on board with Deaton, who, I have to say, had a mega. That was Top Gun goes into second, making it Williams 1-2. It almost feels like the 90s in here. Let's go back to what I was saying about Deaton. He had an absolutely brilliant week out in Monaco, where he took 6th place with some brilliant defensive driving. And with the Red Bull coming across the line now, hopefully this should see him through. But it's only 14th with that time. And he just loses the car there. Who is still out? So Tekker's has invalidated, so he's going to be out. Longson is still yet to set a time. Wiggles has done another 32.5. So we'll go on board with him. Deaton also won at 82 Monaco as well. That's tremendous as well. So definitely the double whammy then. First race victory in IRL, so that is fantastic stuff. Hopefully we can replicate that success for no assist, but he's a little bit down on the times. And to be honest, you could be certain that Mr. Wiggles is going to come through to qualify, just as long as he keeps everything steady. He's only got one corner to go, and after that, one straight, in which he'll be able to open the DRS, which he does so now-ish. Comes across the line. It does a 29.1, so he should be safe with that. Longston comes across the line to set 11th best time, so that's going to be Deaton. Now, Richie M's the last lap we want to see. Is he going to be able to get us up? No, he's not. He's still only 17th with his time. Deaton's not on a timed run, so he's missed out. And that means to say Trollabolo has gotten through into Q2. That means Deaton, Richie M, and Tekkas Alakas are all out of this qualifying session. So there we have it, folks. That's the first qualifying session done. So as you can see, the top 15 go through into the next round. Now, in terms of the people that were eliminated, we have Deaton out in the Red Bull. We have Richie M, who's gone out in the Haas, and Tekkas Alvarez, who wasn't able to set a time in the Ferrari. Damon, obviously, he's got his 5-second penalty, 5-position penalty for that collision that he had with, I think it was Prev. Session indeed. We'll Go on board with him in his Haas. Obviously, he's got all the energy, and hopefully he should have all the tyre temps to go with it as well. We've got to get so close to the walls on this track. There's yellows in Sector 3s. Everyone slows down to set themselves up for the long run down the straight. And it is Deflated Weed's run now. Let's see how he does in terms of the first chicane. Into third, into the fourth. Takes quite a lot of curb there, which can be a little bit upsetting if running a low ride height on this game. Coming down into the quick left-hander, then onwards into the S's that come one after another, as I've always said. PTSD to those who have completed the track acclimatization program, and there's he's invalidated. So we'll go on to the next one then, which is John. He has a 32.2 for a first sector time. They're taking very early line into that off-camber left-hander, almost like a spoon curve that we tend to get in places like Zandvoort, but we're nowhere near as the nowhere near the sort of camber that you get. Like I said, more and more yellows in Sector 3s. Everyone tries to set themselves up. Now, John is obviously with a close battle with, thankfully, Mr. Wiggles was able to get through. Oh, and 1 minute 0.7. So this is looking to be an absolutely electric time from the McLaren. So we're looking definitely into the 1 minute 28. Bello Tomino, great to see you. As John comes down into the final hairpin. Looking very tidy so far, and through the final corner he goes. DRS opening just now. What is it going to be? Is it going to high a bit or low 1 minute 28? It is a 28.1, which is, wow, a 28.1. So that's going to be definitely the fastest we've seen so far in this session. Looks like Richard's the next one to come across the line in his Red Bull. It's already 1.1. Quite a few tenths down on what John was going to do. He's got a second difference. Hadge is the next one to come across the line. He does a 30.5. Who's next? Cholabola was next, and he's on the medium tyres. You know, that's a 30.9, but he's not going to be able to get through with that. Surely not. As Greg does a 29.6. Colucci does a 30.4. Smaller Smiley does a 29.7. So that just goes to show that lap time. Girthy Steve does a 29.2. The THR esports team, potentially. Who is next? Prev was over the line and does a 29.4. I think 10:10 might be next in the Williams, but this does not look like a representative time. I mean, that first sector is over 2 seconds slower than what John managed. And just like that, he's coming to the pit, so he must have ruined his lap. And same for Top Gun, who's obviously invalidated his time, but he looks like he's getting around, really, just to try and feel his... just trying to feel the grip where he can and can't push. Would only be a 29.5 in any case. So Cholabollo next to come over the line. He's a little bit faster than what he did before, so we'll stay on him to see what he does, but it looks like he tapped the wall there. See, Snacks, that lap record, was that around this game, or was it F1 2021? As Girthy Steve looks to bring his car into the pits. John retires from the session, and that looks dominant already from him. We'll go on board then with Wiggles. He's got it all to do in his Mercedes. He's going out a little bit later than normal. However, he's got to be careful within these. It's so easy to invalidate your lap if you get just that little too greedy with the curbs. Thankfully, he's kept it all in check. We'll see what he does for a first sector time. 32.4, so that's pretty good. All looks very tidy so far. We're going to go on his onboard. Go a little bit conservative with the throttle. Well, you have to be on those particular curbs because they're slanted. It just feels off camber when you're trying to do them. It comes around and say 1 minute 1.1 for a second sector time. So I'll probably expect to be up in second or third place with that. But how has John done that? Never count Wiggles. Well, you should say never count him out. As Mercedes comes across the line, it's a 28.7, so good enough for 6th. So Deflated Wee is next to start his time. Count out. So annoyed. It was on for 29 dead and 1, then the validate third last corner and didn't get a lap in. Oh, well that is a shame, Ducky. That's a shame. I'm assuming you were in the Ferrari. But, yeah, these things happen, unfortunately, and there's such an easy track in which you can invalidate, so I would say just keep your chin up, mate. It's still plenty to come your way. And this is a track where there's plenty of carnage. But it's looking relatively straightforward laps so far for Deflated Wee. Yellow's the sector 3. That's the 1 minute 1.3. So a couple of tenths down from what Wiggles did. But I think he will have lost a couple of tenths there through the way he went through those two corners. There wasn't the tidiest that we've ever seen. So probably lost a couple of tenths on what Wiggles was able to do. Into the hairpin he goes. As 10-10 does a 28.2. Not too far off from what John did. Deflated Wee goes 4th. Top Gun's still in the pits. We've still got Colucci and we got Damon out on runs. If 4 tenths up in this best, so Damon could be on for a very, very good lap here. A little bit gentle with his throttle exit. The others in sector 1. If John's obviously retired, he obviously feels confident enough getting through with that time. What does Damon do for next sector? He's 8 tenths up in his best, but he goes wide. And he'll probably lose all of those 8 tenths right there. That is such a shame. He's looking to be on a very clean lap. As Greg gets out of the way. Now, where would this put Damon? It's going to be a 1 minute 29 for sure. And he lost 4 tenths in that final sector as a result of that. But unless he gets around quickly, I don't think he's going to get another run in. Looks like everyone, the top 3 are coming into the pits. So let's go. Still yet to set a time in the TRH. Into turn 1 he goes. Looks very straightforward there. Down to 4th for that next turn, but now he gets a bit more acceleration but through managing the gear shifts as well as he has done. Let's see what he does for a first sector time. It's going to be 32.5, so pretty good. But not quite the best that we've seen so far. Let's see how he takes the next set of corners. Again, very straightforward. This could be the third race that Top Gun's only done in this tier, but imagine he would have done quite a lot of league racing behind him. So, let's see what he does for that. It's a 1 minute 1 dead. Wiggles has retired from the session. So it looks like on par with what Wiggles was able to do. This could see him into a net third place as long as he gets that final sector right. But with 2 minutes to go left in this qualifying session, anything can happen. And so far we've got Colucci, Padge, Trollobolo, Top Gun and Longson in the drop zone. But I don't think Top Gun's going to be in the drop zone for very long. So he comes across the line and he does go third. But that time was Smaller Smiley just set a time to go fifth. Richard is invalidated in his Red Bull. We'll see Greg has backed off. So Padge is on the next one. We're going to go on board with him again. Oh, it's only 29.7, so it looks like he's invalidated. Apologies for that. Trollobolo has is about to restart his lap. Longson on an out lap as well in his Aston Martin, and he needs to... This is his one chance to set a good time. He can't let that go amiss. As you see, Trollobolo, who's had some very, very good races in his AlphaTauri in this tier so far. Hence why he's got himself a permanent seat now in this tier. Let's see what he does for a first sector time. He's 4/10 up in his best, but it's a 32.9. So he's got to make sure he nails these next sets of corners. But yellows all around as everyone tries to stay out of each other's way. Would be nice to have the graphics up for multiple people there. Would be really, really cool. He's at 4/10 up, but it's only 1 minute 2, so he's not going to cut it. The cut-off time so far is a 29.4, so he needs a monster of a final sector if he's able to find out that time. However, I don't think this is going to be strong enough to get him through. As the clock goes to 0, Trollobolo comes over the line. And it's only good for 13th place, so he is out. Padge comes into the pit, so he is out. Greg has come into the pit, so he is out. Colucci is a little bit down on his first sector time, so he could be out as well. Longson is invalidated, so he will be out. And Colucci is again down on his best, so unless he finds his rear end, he's not going to get through. And with that, he's going to go out as well. So that's the end of qualifying, it seems. Richard, though, looks like he's on a brilliant lap in his Red Bull. 4/10 up at his best. So this should see him comfortably into the 1 minute 28. But can he steal third from Top Gun? This would be quite a telling lap if he does. Longson has invalidated and come into the pit, so he's going to be out of this round. As Richard comes across the line, what does the Red Bull do? Is this going to be within the 1 minute 28? So certainly is, but he goes third with that time. Strong lap from Richard, has to be said, who's coming off the back of some brilliant debuts. Well, debuts. Some brilliant races as he's relatively new to the tier. Colucci retires from the session, and we've just got to wait for Longson to be pulled into the pits, and that should be the end of this qualifying session. So there we have it, folks. We have Q2 has been completed, and with this we have our 10 drivers going for the pole position shootout. For those leaving us in this qualifying session, we have Greg in the McLaren, Padge in the Alfa Romeo, Trollobolo in the AlphaTauri. We have Colucci 14th in his Ferrari, and Longson, like Ducky, didn't get around to setting a time in that qualifying round, so he will start in 15th place. So with 10 seconds to go into the next round. Looks quite close for pole position. Who you guys are going to give it to? You're going to give it to 1010, John, maybe Top Gun, or Richard, or Wiggles. Let us know who you think is going to grab pole position in this Jeddah Grand Prix. He's getting your votes, guys. He's proven to be very, very popular. Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you, Padge. I'm a bit tired myself, but it's always a pleasure to stream for this league. So here we have the World Championship leader just backing off, getting himself ready for the run down to the straight. You can see just how wide he takes it, and he's already on the throttle, on the full throttle, way before the exit of the corner. It's looking to be a very good start for the lap for 1010 as he comes down into the first corner. Taking plenty of curve. Thankfully, the Haas stays out of the way, which I assume is deflated. Yes, it is deflated wee. Down into the next corner. Frankly, I lose track with how many corners there are. I think there's 27, but I don't know which is which because these are barely corners, let's be honest. Looks like very tidy there from 1010. What's the benchmark going to be for the first sector? Oh, thank you for that, Patch. Really, really nice. Wiggles has enabled party mode. Love it. I think that's kind of apt considering he's in a Mercedes. Oh, a back end stepping out a little bit there for 1010 in his Williams. What's his first sector going to be? It's a 1:08. So very competitive as of yet. We're probably looking at about a low 1:28 here. Could we potentially see someone get into the 1:27s? As Girthy Steve gets out of the way, thankfully. Damon's joined. He's certainly pushing indeed, Johnny B. 1010 comes across the line. It's going to be a 28.2 for a first benchmark time. I'm interested to see what John's doing. He's backed off a little bit there, and looks like he's actually got damage. So, because he's coming into the pits, might have damage there, which is certainly interesting. But now Wiggles goes fastest. Wiggles goes fastest by just over 0.04 of a second. This is looking up to be a very competitive qualifying session indeed. Small Smiley down 0.5 on what 1010 was able to do. So we're looking at about 1:29 here. It's a 28.8 for that. So 0.6 back from the leaders, but looking very strong so far in the Alfa Romeo. Strong lap indeed. Top Gun does a 32.4. One minute, one dead. He's 0.2 down from what 1010 and Wiggles were able to do. But he should be good for third as of yet. John's still yet to set his most competitive time. Who else is still out? So Girthy Steve must be on a run himself. So we'll go to him next. It's certainly close indeed. Top Gun goes to the line. He's only a 10th back, so he's had a very good final sector. Is it too late for me to change the things for the poll? Because there's so many options here. Girthy Steve goes 6th with a 29 dead. Trev and Wiggles, surely both of them are coming into the pits. Deflated Wee's next to come across the line. I don't think this is going to be a pole time from Deflated, but this is going to be a 29.9, which it's probably at the moment there. It's not the most remarkable time, but this is quite a tricky track to master with all of its close walls and whatnot. So we've got Damon and John, who both still yet to set a time. With 6 minutes to go in this qualifying session, John's got to get this done now. He's not going to have enough tyres realistically to do 2 runs. It's almost like these guys are almost racing each other. Give each other some space, which is, thankfully, is what they're doing. Now, John's lap is going to be very, very crucial. A bit gentle on the throttle. But there's still a whole lap to go for him to find time. Let's see what the McLaren is able to do as it goes down into the first corner. It's very off-camera, very tidy, has to be said. Into the S's he goes. Now that is a corner which you can take liberties with. All well within track boundaries there, so it's looking very strong. What's he got for a first sector time? It's a 32.4, so just on par with the top two. This could be an absolute fight. He did a 28.1 in the first qualifying session. We could see a 28 dead. Again, looking very tidy so far from John. Let's see what his second sector time is like. Just 1:01 flat, so he's on par with Top Gun. But not quite on par with Wiggles or 1010. He's a little bit down on the first sector time, so he could at least get onto the second row with this. However, he's going to find it very tricky to get round the field in time to do another lap. So I wonder what he's going to do here. He's going to go in and bank the lap, it seems. So go fourth with that time, which is with a 28.4. Damon comes across the line, does a 29.2. It goes ninth with that time. Expect the leaders to come back out yet again as Prev is invalidated. He slows down in sector 3. Feels like the calm before the storm right now. Because we're getting into the time where it's under the 4-minute barrier. So expect the leaders to come out and set a good time. Seven drivers still in the pits. I can see now more and more drivers coming out. So we've got one of the Williams coming out, which is Top Gun. We've got Richard also out in the Red Bull. Out right now. And there he is, taking absolutely all the time that he needs. So here we go. Let's see if Top Gun can improve on his time. He's got to find a 10.5 if he wants to get pole position. With everyone coming out of the pits, hope they do well to stay out of his way. We never like to see laps being impeded in any way. As before, goes into that in fourth gear. Helps counter any oversteer, any understeer rather. It was a 32.4 initially, and it's a 33.3, so he's found 7/10 in the first sector. 10:10 looks like he's your favourite for pole, with Wiggles second and John in third. Deflated and Richard don't quite look like competitors at the moment, so let's have a look at the Dark Horse as far as the pole is concerned. Well, you know what I'm trying to say there. It's Top Gun. This is going to be his only chance to make an impression, and he's lost time in the second sector. He's 0.03 of a second down on his initial benchmark time. So he's got to find this a little bit extra if he wants to get at least onto the front row. But the leaders have just come around to start their timed laps right now. So Top Gun has got it all to do as he comes across the final sector. Has he been able to find that extra 10th or so? He comes across the line, but he's only good for third with only an extra 300ths found. Who else is out on a timed run? So we've got John. He's about to start his run, I beg your pardon. We'll go on board Wiggles then, who's done a 32.1 for a first sector. This is looking incredible from Mr. Wiggles. He's already a 10th up on his best. Could we see him get into the 1 minute 27s? Down into the next corner, but he's hit the wall! And with that, that's going to ruin his pace absolutely. Because with that, that's going to cost him at least 2 tenths. And with that, hopefully he hasn't got any front wing damage, but that could be it for Wiggles. So let's see what he does as he comes across the next sector. He's 700ths down. He could find some extra time in this final sector. But that would have cost him. It could have been faster. John certainly did do well to get back out. Richard finishes in 7th. Prev finishes in 5th. Looks like Smaller Smarties had to bail out of his lap. But Wiggles comes across the line and hasn't been able to find any improvement since that tiny mistake. He comes across the line and he does find that extra 10th. So that's a 28-1 so far from him. And 10-10 is invalidated, crucially. 10-10 has invalidated his time. Girthy Steve finishes in 5th. John is up on his best by 6 tenths, however. It's a 10-10. It's a 1 minute 4 in this first sector. So poor lap there from Mr. Wiggles. However, what is John going to be able to do? Is he going to be able to find enough time as he comes across the line? And it's a 27-7 for John, who takes pole position very comfortably in his McLaren. So that one person in the poll that voted for him, I hope you put a bit of money on that, because the odds are certainly in your favour. Deflated Wii has invalidated, so that's going to be it for the grid. What a lap from John in his McLaren to take pole position by 4 tenths of a second. Now, in standard Formula 1, we'd be saying that that looked like a very dominant lap. And in all fairness, it very much was. Deary me, indeed. Excuse me. So there we have it, folks. We have our top 10 for this qualifying session. So we have John starting in pole position ahead of his championship rival, Mr. Wiggles. 10-10 sits in 3rd place with Top Gun behind him in 4th. Girthy Steve sits in 5th in the Alpine with Prev 6th in his Mercedes. Smaller Smiley starts in 7th with Richard 8th in his Red Bull. Damon sits in 9th and Deflated Wii, if sadly invalidated his run, starts in 10th. Well, that was certainly a quick qualifying session. We are going to go now to a 5-minute break before we start the next round of... We're starting the race, rather. Apologies for that. Well, say, what a lap there from the McLaren. Truly a brilliant time. Sort of promotion for our YouTube channel. So as you can see there, that was the race for last time in the no assist here, which was the wet race in the night of the Monaco Grand Prix, which saw Wiggles win very, very comfortably. So just to let you know, with this, all of our races are going out onto our YouTube channel after they've been edited and collected. So if you are new around here and you wanted to see the highlights of each race, then do hit that lovely subscribe button. Get subscribed to IIRL Racing League on our YouTube channel, and we should hopefully be able to bring you some brilliant content going forward. So let's just do a quick reminder of the driver's standings. 10-10 is currently in the lead with 240 points compared to Wiggles is 198. Sorry, I think hay fever's getting down to me. John's currently sitting in 3rd. The pole sitter is sitting in 3rd with 18 point, with about a 22 point gap though to Mr. Wiggles. I can clearly do maths, as you can see. Smiley sits in 4th with Deflated Wii and Joseph Hales not too far behind, 5th and 6th respectively. Deflated Wee's got it all to do if he wants to hang on, if he wants to get 4th place back in the championship. Iros J obviously not racing as he's just a reserve. Flew and that guy not racing either. Top Gun sitting in 4th place in his Williams. And Richard sitting in the top 10 for Red Bull. Could be looking to a very strong session from him indeed. Williams are obviously sitting very comfortably in the top of the constructor standings against Mercedes. 92-point difference between the top two, with McLaren not too far behind. Alpine sitting 4th with Oracle Red Bull Racing in 5th. Haas sit in 6th with the Alfa Romeo team in 7th. Scuderia Ferrari sit in 8th with Aston Martin sitting in 9th. And AlphaTauri round up the field in 10th place. So guys, it won't be too far off. If 10-10 wins today, the title will be pretty much his. Anything can happen in Jeddah. It's a pretty good circuit for racing, all things considered. So, it should be interesting to see what he does. There are many, many lights lighting up the track, but all of these cars, all of these drivers are thinking about now are the 5 red lights coming on your screen. And when they go out, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix will be underway. Absolutely. It looks like a very, very good start there from John. Bad start there from Mr. Wiggles behind. And what is happening there? Almost like a glitch. The Haas was almost mounting the Red Bull at the back. As you can see, the back of the screen, everybody seems to be getting around without too much trouble. It's a very strong, very tidy start there from the rest of the field. But it looks like John doing everything he needs to do. The top positions haven't changed between the top few drivers. We'll go onto the tyres so you can see what everyone there is doing. Telemetry will be going off. Apologies for that. So you see John, the only one to start out in the Wiggles. And let's see what's happened to Richie M, who has had a moment spinning off in his Haas. Running the number 13, which belonged to the legendary Maldonado. And there we go. He's back onto the track now, which is, I mean, we're always good to see. At least he'll still be in the race. 25 laps of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix to go. And crucially, John is still... Mr. Wiggles is still within his DRS. He's got to use those medium tyres to good effect. As you see, Richard and Girthy Steve having a battle between themselves. The Alpine versus the Red Bull. And now Deflated Wee has moved up into 8th place. Who's right now behind Girthy Steve. Coming down with the DRS not even activated yet. And the Haas not too far behind. It looks like he's going to go down to the inside. Or no, the outside rather. He's on the medium compound tyre, so he's got to make the moves now. Goes right round the outside of the Alpine. He should be able to hold it off there, and he does so. But the Alpine will have the inside coming into the first corner. He's going to be able to drag him all the way down into the first corner. Is Girthy Steve going to throw it down to the inside as Richard and Prev almost get out of shape between them there? As Deton and Tekker's out. Deton and Ducky, rather, having a good fight between them in the Ferrari. 15th to 16th. It wasn't the best qualifying session for either of the Ferraris, and hopefully Deton will be able to reclaim some of that form that he found in Monaco. We're certainly hoping he did a good job there. As Top Gun is pretty close to his teammate now, with Prev being a bit of a cork in the bottle for those behind him running on the medium compound tyres. Top Gun not too far behind, and let's see what Deflated Wee's up to. He's 2/10 behind Richard. Or you could just see on his steering wheel the amount of errs that he'll have left. Richard obviously using plenty to stay ahead, but Prev goes wide, and that means that's going to give Richard an opportunity in the Red Bull. The gap's evening out to about a second up in the front. Red Bull versus the Mercedes goes around the outside. You think the Red Bull in recent times would be able to out-drag him. It looks like he's just about doing that, but Prev's not quite giving it up. He still have the inside, so he still has the room to fight back, but Deflate Wee is going to get a tow, ideally, from both of them. John is 7/10 back. 7/10 ahead, rather. Let's see what he does. Prev goes round to the outside, but Richard has got it covered. And that puts him off a little bit somewhat, but there's nothing really Deflate can do to take advantage of that. Richard now has got to catch up to the leaders. There's 1.6 seconds the gap as Deflated Wee. I don't know whether that was poor internet connection or whether he lost the... Oh, then Tekis Alvarez gets the first time penalty of the session. Deflated Wee goes wide. Now, it looks like it was just a poor internet connection because nothing looks to be the matter with him. Yellow's in... It looks like it's Deton that's had a moment there. Yes, Deton has lost his Red Bull coming out of that particular section. But looking up the front, this is exactly the start that John needed. He's broken the DRS to Mr. Wiggles, who crucially has gotten 10-10 and Top Gun behind him. There's not going to be much he can do to, I would say, because as you can see on 1010's on board, the Mercedes is already flashing. Doesn't look like there's any flashing so far from the McLaren up ahead, who has got a softer compounder tyre and a little bit more energy to spare. It all just depends on the gap that he can build between them. Trev and Deflated Wee fighting between them as well. Both coming up to Richard, who is dropped back by 2 seconds now. Could be potentially be 4 abreast into the first corner. Trev chucks it down the inside. A little bit of contact with them in the Red Bull. So not quite the tidiest bit of driving, it has to be said. As Deflated Wee's going to throw it potentially down to the inside, but he backs out of it quite sensibly. Almost 5 line astern through the tight S's here. This looks insane to watch right now. 5 of them so close between each other. Obviously, it all just depends who gets the best exit as the lead for P34's changed. It looks like Top Gun has gotten past 1010. So too bad we missed that move there. But there was so much action going on behind, it was hard to know what was going on in the lead at all. As Girthy Steve is now joining, he's getting a little bit of a train behind Richard now, who's now 3.8 seconds back. So I don't know whether he's got damage on that Red Bull. However, that said, Girthy Steve has had a moment. He's gone off. Oh, and Padge is off as well, with him in the Alpha Tauri as well. Looks like there might be a little bit of debris on the track as everyone tries to reverse back into position. Smaller Smiley was caught up in all of that, sadly. And that puts Deton up into 13th. However, I have got a feeling that may very well be looked at. And Wiggles has lost out as well to Top Gun. But Top Gun is not going to have the DRS, I think. No, he's not. This is all going to be music to John's ears. Top Gun sets the fastest lap. The Mercedes goes back into second place. And 1010 gets a 3-second time penalty for cutting the corners. Top Gun's still not giving it up against Mr. Wiggles. John pulling out 2.2 seconds on these guys. This is all working out as an absolute treat for the McLaren, as Tekkers gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Girthy Steve is obviously coming into the pits as well, so these two must be sorting out some form of damage. Girthy Steve is obviously got damage, but Tekkers Alakas is absolutely fine himself, so nothing much to say there, nothing much to write about. Two-tenths now the gap between second place and third place. Looks like John looks to have more or less checked out at the front. Looks like the Williams has certainly passed the Merc here. Oh, that is so close. Only just giving him enough space. Williams goes wide though. That's going to give Wiggles another opportunity around the outside of that right-hander. You don't often see overtakes there, but Wiggles goes now back through the Williams and into the inside and back into second place. Oh, and there we have 1010 right behind all of this. And just as this is happening, John is pulling out a stop by nearly 3 seconds from these guys. Is 1010 going to throw it down to the inside of his teammate? As you can see, he's saving up plenty of energy there. This has given us some brilliant racing, this track, it has to be said. And they are leaving Richard behind for dead. As Greg goes up the inside of Trollobolo. A little bit of contact between them as the Ferrari of Colucci doesn't sit too far behind. They're still fighting going down into the third sector, but it looks like Trollobolo has got the move covered for now. Greg goes wide. That's going to allow the Ferrari a chance to go through. But not quite. It looks like he's got that move covered. And let's see what's going on at the front. 3.3 now the gap between John and Wiggles. It's all going into the McLaren's hands. I think the DRS is so powerful around this track though. It's almost like if you're this close, you can't not pass. I think he'll stay behind though. That'll bring him closer. But mind you, if you drop back here, it's not the end of the world. It is. The DRS zones, I do think, are quite forgiving. It has to be said. Yellow's in Sector 2, so what's happened there? Looks like Smaller Smiley's had another moment. And he has spun in his Alfa Romeo, so not a good day for Alfa Romeo today. 3.6 seconds covers the... separates the two leaders. Oh, and look at 1010. He's throwing it down to the inside. That's a late move there from the Scot, the championship leader. That's a very ambitious overtake. That could be the move of the race so far. Richard and Prev NL fighting off between them. Faywee not too far behind himself. The field's starting to bunch up now as mistakes are creeping in. There's Trollabolo not too far behind Greg. And these two hit him and the Ferrari. What's happened to Richard? Oh, it looks like a timing glitch of some sort. Everybody people struggling, I think, with their various internet connections and whatnot. As the leaders line astern once again. What's happened in Sector 2 is Trollabolo's had a moment. Has he got any damage? It don't look like he has. The Top Gun has dropped a little bit far back from 1010. Don't think he's going to overtake here. Richie's had a moment in his Haas. Three tenths back. He's gaining before the start-finish straight. There we go. Switching him back. But doesn't look like he's got it covered. Richie has another moment in Sector 2. Certainly overcooked his tyres. Has he got any damage on his Haas? No, it looks like he's safe. Richard gets another time penalty. Now, from second down to fourth, they're very line astern. If you look at the lead that John John's built up already, it's 4.6 seconds, which is a mile in league racing. And while these three are fighting each other, it's just giving him more and more space to breathe. However, coming on to lap 8, his tyres will surely be taking a pounding. Let's see if 1010's going to be able to defend from his teammate. Doesn't look like he's going to go for an overtake here, which wouldn't be wise. I think what these guys are doing, they're not going to bother fighting each other, but they've just got to go with Mr. Wiggles and hope they can bridge the gap to the leader. What John does not need right now is a safety car. That will bunch all the field back up, and all of his work would have gone down the toilet. And here we have Top Gun, not too far from his teammate. Both Williams drivers in third and fourth, looking at a decent haul of points for their Constructors' World Championship. The top 10 are all in the McLaren sandwich, it looks like. And yeah, you can see 4.4 seconds the gap between the top two. So it looks like John John's really starting to feel the pain of those tyres going off. Looks like everyone's starting to calm down a little bit up at the front. Let's see how the leader's doing. And yellow's in sector 2. And looks like Padge has had another moment. So there he goes. 4.3 now the gap. You could very well see... you could see John John in the next lap attempting to box. As 1010 goes for second place and takes it. Oh, and look at this. A nice little battle going on between Prev and Richard. And Prev shoves him off the track. very aggressive bit of defending there, and that leaves Deflated Wee the opportunity to get by himself. Gap between the leaders stays at 4.3. Deton and Padge trading places between them as well. But crucially with Deflated Wee, he's got the medium set of tyres on, and Prev is not really fighting anyone at the moment. So he's actually set up quite well. Like, his battle's really with Deflated Wheat and Richard. I think Lonson's a little bit distant from this fight, but nothing to say he can't join the party later. Yeah, 3.8 now, the gap between John and 1010. So the gap is starting to come down. Let's see what the leader does. I've got a feeling we may see him in at the end of this lap. 3.2 now is the gap, so has he had a moment there, or are the tyres just that dead? Oh, and Wiggles and Top Gun both into the pits. They're coming in very early. Has to be said, both of them going onto the medium compound tyre, and that's a very early call to make. Oh, and 1010. Oh, no, Deflated Wee and Prev hitting each other. And that's a shame. It looks like Deflated Wee will have to give that place up. We don't always like to see contact. But he gave up the position to Prev. Oh. And the gap between them now, Prev has got a 5-second penalty for corner cutting and gaining in place. However, I think that's... I have to say, I have to think that's in sort of question because of, you know, of the way he was forced off the track there. Smaller Smiley comes into the pits and retires. Wiggles comes out just behind Colucci. So crucially, he's going to have DRS. Even if his tyres aren't quite that warm yet. He's going to have DRS for at least one of these straights if he passes it, that is. But this has transformed the battle for the race win, rather. As Colucci, oh, you get the sense he's being held up massively here. So he's just gone from bad to worse. It's a shame. We don't always like to see that, mate, but hopefully you have a better run next time. Oh, and Top Gun's just passed Wiggles now, so that could be for a net third place. But however, to do 15 laps on the medium tyres, it's a bit of a weird strategy. But the Williams covers the inside, the Mercedes goes round to the outside. What a move from Mr. Wiggles. Display Week gets a 3-second time penalty. You see the Williams all the way behind him there. The gap between the top two is currently at 2 seconds now, so 1010's lost a little bit of time. But crucially, they're in a position where they could potentially leapfrog. Actually, no, they're not. They're still quite a ways back. I was about to say I thought they could have leapfrogged the rest of the field, but crucially, it's quite early to go into the medium tyre given the usual meta of this game. However, hey, if you feel like it could work, then by all means go for it. Crucially, John hasn't got a time penalty, so 1010's going to need to pull out an additional 3 seconds. Could John be stretching this out to the softs? As Top Gun again goes ahead of Wiggles. Now again, these two fighting each other is just going to do wonders for both 1010 and John. Wiggles goes down to the inside. It looks like it's going to be a comfortable overtake, even if he has done the fastest lap. You don't want to lose time. Doesn't want to fight any more than he needs to. These two giving us a brilliant show right now. And there we go, and Top Gun throws it again down to the inside. So just when you thought it was over, it's all anything but over. So we see some more pit stops. Greg comes into the pit, as does Damon, Deton. There's just those three for now. So John currently pulling out time on 10-10. The gap now has gone up to 3 seconds. Looks like Small and Smiley suffered from rear wing damage, which is a shame. Let's go to see what the penalties are. So Prev has got 5 seconds, which I imagine will probably be taken off. Well, now Girthy Steve has got a penalty. Richard's gotten 6 seconds. Greg has 3. Tekka's Alkas has 6 seconds. And Deflated Wee and 10-10 all have 3 seconds each. Well, now Tekka's has got himself 9 seconds worth of penalties. The battle still rages on between Top Gun and Wiggles. As now, 10-10 deciding it's time to box, but he's going to lose out a lot to these two. That's quite a lot of time he's lost through that pit stop phase, but hopefully those 3 laps extra life should make the difference. They should be able to catch these two back up, because they'll inevitably lose time fighting each other. Oh, and Prev's gone round. And that puts Wiggles and Top Gun rightly back into second and third. 10-10, 2.4 seconds behind in 4th place. So it's like Prev is making mistakes now that he's got that 13 laps done on those hard tyres. But they're the least grippy tyre. But even if they bake themselves into the track, it's still the worst kind of tyre to be on in terms of performance. Interesting fight going on now between Damon and Deton. Damon on hards and Damon on mediums rather, and Deton on hards. Deton now gets himself a time penalty. Damon going a little bit wide there. Crucially, John's still going. So it looks like, for certainly, he's going to try and do the rest. He's going to do his last stint on soft tyres. He's going to be very fast coming to the end. So it all just depends how much time these two lose fighting each other. I think Top Gun's probably realising now he probably has to back off now. It's all starting to change up at the front, and Wiggles goes a little bit wide. That throws the Williams off somewhat. And you got 10-10 not too far behind them either. It's fascinating to see what John might do here. So every lap he does, he's going to buy himself more and more life. Should he come out on softs, he'll only have 10 laps to do. But 10 laps is a tough ask on any circuit. And this only has 25 laps. It's not particularly a tyre killer. However, tyre life makes such a difference when you're trying to catch up to another car. John stays out again. And Top Gun goes round to the outside of Wiggles. 10-10 not too far behind this lot. These two not giving each other an inch. But Top Gun goes into the wall almost. Who's going to have DRS? Well, none of them have it at the moment. Well, no, it's Wiggles. 10-10 does do the fastest lap, however. So it does look like John is stretching this out into the soft compound tyre. Let's see what other close battles we have on track. Longston and Trollabolo. Well, Trollabolo now's just come into the pit, so rather ruins that particular fight. Wiggles now down to third. The handicap that 10-10's got is that 3-second penalty. Yellows are coming out, so that'll be Blues coming out rather for Richie. Look to stay out of the way, which he does so. Four tenths now separating these two. They can't lose time fighting each other though. They must know surely what John is doing here, what he's got up his sleeve. With 15 laps on those mediums, what's the leader going to do? Is he going to come into the pits? Yes, he is. And I presume this will be for the softs. Doesn't make any sense now to go on to the hards. And there he goes. And yes, it is the soft compound tyre. Wiggles and Top Gun are still fighting each other. Where they're going to come out relative to John. Yellow's in sector 1. The Williams throws down to the inside. 10-10 takes the lead almost. But Wiggles now back into the lead as they're all fighting each other. And look how close John has gotten out to the back of these guys. This is an absolute treat for the leader, who now finds himself on soft compound tyres while the rest are on mediums. The only way this can go wrong for him is if he loses it or if the tyres burn out. But this is exactly... Now, it may not have come out. He may not have come out ahead of everybody else, but with soft compound tyres and a very fired up position behind, he's currently netting 3rd place. And these tyres do wear off very, very quickly. And crucially, those softs are 6 laps younger than Top Gun and Wiggles. 10-10 has got 3 laps extra, but the problem is he is not going to have the luxury of no penalty, because he's got that 3-second penalty that he's got to make up. So he's sitting himself right now comfortably for 4th place. I wonder whether this DRS train though is going to work against John. But Top Gun hasn't got any more Earths to deploy. There he goes. He's probably going to do 2 Williams in 1 here. Girthy Steve gets another time penalty. Oh, but the Williams is still around the outside, and Top Gun not giving this one up at all. He hasn't got the energy to deploy. However, John has got the tyres and the DRS. Is he going to attempt another move here, potentially on the 2nd Williams right now? He is going to try it, but 10-10 looks like he's got that move just about covered. And that's going to give Mr. Wiggles a little bit of breathing space, as the McLaren on fired up soft compound tyres has got it all to do if he wants to regain the lead of this race. Look, just look how much more grip he's got compared to the rest of his competitors. And there we go. He's going to attempt a penalty around the outside. Did a move that Lance Stroll attempted around the outside of one of the Ferraris in real life Formula 1. Is he going to make it stick? It looks like he's just about going to do it. That is a lovely move from John there in the McLaren. Absolutely brilliant stuff there from the McLaren of John, who on softer compound tyres has got it all to do right now. He's got all the grip in the world compared to the leaders. The only way this could go wrong for him is if his tyres just fall off such a cliff, which is possible with these softs, but I don't see that happening right now. And look at the gap he's built to what he's built from 10-10. Throws it down to the inside of Wiggles. Oh, and he loses. Wiggles almost loses the back end there. And with John having DRS now, that will surely see him into the lead. But I don't think Wiggles wants to give this one up. He throws it down to the inside. A very optimistic overtake there. But he's just about lost the position to John, who now retakes the lead thanks to being on those soft tyres. Now, crucially, can he break the DRS? He's building time as of where you look. Just within that first sector alone, he's now 5 tenths ahead. Top Gun sitting right behind his teammate in the Williams, and looks like 10-10 just gave that place up. So he thought there was no point in fighting it. Greg has left the session. But crucially for John, he hasn't broken DRS yet, so this is Wiggles' last ditch effort to keep himself in the frame for the lead rather. Because surely but surely, hopefully those tyres will go off as Damon has, looks like he's lost his front, yeah, he's lost his front wing in that AlphaTauri. It's a very easy track to lose the car. It is very, very deceiving, but not quite for John. But Wiggles loses the back end, and that's going to give John crucially the buffer that he needs to stamp his authority over the lead of this Grand Prix. If he breaks that DRS zone, he's home free. And now, crucially, now Wiggles is now out of DRS, as we likely would have suspected from that blunder that he made. Oh, and now Wiggles has lost it again. Wiggles has now dropped down to 4th, and has he damaged his front wing? This is crucial in his battle with John for the championship. That's going to at least guarantee 10-10. That's going to guarantee him 3rd place at this rate. That is crucial. That is absolutely crucial. Crucially, that's going to give John even more of a buffer now. Been extremely bold with the decisions that he's made as far as strategy goes. But sometimes doing something different is how you win races, and not facing the right side of the track isn't how you win races. So here we have 10-10. While, yes, he's kind of guaranteed a podium at this rate. However, what he hasn't got, like, if he didn't have that penalty, he'd really be fighting for 2nd place, as Greg loses it in his McLaren. But with 5 or so laps to go, that's might put in a bow in this race. But looking back through the field, Richard versus Deflated Wee, these two side by side with each other coming into the tight left-hander, and they just about give each other enough room. Had to say, strong stuff with the two of them giving each other space. But Richard gets ahead of Deflated Wee and keeps that 6th place. With Smaller Smiley out, Deflated Wee's going to take a nice handful of points to work his way back up to 4th in the championship standings. And if memory serves me well, he is currently 6 points behind Smiley. So if you stay 6th, you should be able to get back 4th in the championship. Gap between the leaders goes up now to 2.6 seconds. It's safe to say, like, entry now for 2nd, absolutely. But crucially with these guys, they're giving us a really close fight. Oh, and Top Gun's got a penalty. Yes, Top Gun, it's back on for 2nd. Top Gun has got a time penalty. I just noticed that now. So 10-10's fight for 2nd place in this race is back on. Scott's having it all to do, but he's a master of saving ERS, and crucially, the car in front, I thought it was flashing. Yeah, he's flashing now, and that means, when that happens, it means he's running out of energy. Like you've just seen in front here with Deflated Wee, as you can see, internet connection is everyone's friend right now. He's got to stay with his teammate. So now he's got himself his own time penalty. It'll be a big haul of points for Williams in any case for the constructors' standings. However, 10-10's got the championship to think about. That'll be 3 more points, bringing him closer to championship glory. If things finish the way they did now, John would be on. Let's see who's got the fastest lap though. Yeah, so 1010's currently got the fastest lap. So if this finishes the way it did, John would be on 201 points. Wiggles would be on 210 points. And 1010 would be on 256 points. So it would be a 46-point gap between the leaders in the championship. So if my calculations are correct, and they're probably not, if Wiggles and John both retire, then 1010 will have to only finish in... He'll only have to finish in 8th place to secure the championship. We're already talking about championship permutations, and we've still got 4 star races to go. And John gets his first time penalty now, but it won't be much in terms of an actual penalty, because he's already was 3 seconds above other people anyway, who have also got their own penalties to worry about. But the fight for second is still on. Any work that 1010 can do now will save him wonders in this championship battle. He's got 3 lap younger tyres than his teammate, so theoretically he should have a little bit more life. That'll give him an extra couple of tenths per lap as Top Gun's tyres decide to die. With DRS and ERS, he'll take second place for now, but he's got to be able to open up that gap. If he doesn't, then Top Gun will be over him like super glue. Let's see what other battles that we've got. So we've got Prev and Colucci. About 5 tenths away from each other. Longson is doing well to sit in 7th place. And crucially, Richard has lost out to Deflated Wee, but he switches him back, but he's got an extra 3 seconds worth of penalties. So Deflated Wee is looking much better for 4th in the championship now. Because John right now, I think, is just backing off. He's only got 1 lap to go. Looks like it's a fairly quick race this time around. Saudi is usually pretty quick, as Longson, Colucci and Prev still line astern with each other. Oh, and crucially, 1010 has just broken the DRS to Top Gun. So, Top Gun's going to have it all to do coming into the last few... No, it's without DRS. He's going to find it hard to be in with a shot for second now. But let's go on board with the leader, who has just been faultless so far this race, apart from that 3-second time penalty. He dared to be different with the strategy, and with 1.7 seconds to go ahead of his lap, with 1 lap to go, he should just about get in front, stay in front. But it is getting a little bit closer. 1010's not quite giving up, so we'll go on to the... We'll go into the interval, we'll go into tyre. Yeah, that's it, there we go. With 8 laps done on the soft compound tyre, it's all to... John can't make a mistake here. I'm starting to think that his lead is not quite as comfortable as I'm being made to believe. Because as those soft tyres, as you know if you played the game, they absolutely fall off the cliff. Because just the wear for them is so high, despite giving you all the grip in the world. Yellow's in Sector 1, as I think D-Tom's had a bit of a moment. So he's not going to get DRS here. But if he can get DRS, potentially coming onto the straights. He's within DRS though. Could it be a drag straight finish for 1010 versus John? 9 tenths are in it. It all just depends on how much life he's got. He hasn't got much in terms of ERS. But crucially, 1010 is now within DRS. This could be a grandstand finish here, guys. I thought he had this race fully covered, but it doesn't quite look like it. This could be a close to the line finish. What's 1010 going to do? Has John run out of tyres almost? It looks like he's got a very good exit. He looks like he's going to go to the wire. Who's going to win the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix? And it's going to be John by not even a tenth of a second. Those tyres were absolutely done by the end. Top Gun takes 3rd, and Mr. Wiggles, thanks to his mistake, 1010 pushes now, and that was so close. He'll be ruining that on-track penalty. However, Mr. Wiggles comes across the line and takes fourth, brewing his mistake, it has to be said, with Richard coming across the line in 5.4 seconds. Longson hasn't quite got there, but he's just about prep, almost just beat him to the line. Colucci goes into ninth with a 3.9 second, with Trollabolo rounding out the points paying positions. I have to say, I was not expecting that race was a bit of a slow burner, that one. I was not expecting it to creep on with me the way that it did. And Girthy Steve, as you can see, is finishing the race with no front wing. It's almost like he watched the Ferrari lack of front wing at the sprint, I think at the sprint shootout, and thinking, that might be a nice way to finish. But he comes across the line, as does Damon, and that's going to be the end. But that, I have to say, was a nail-biting finish. As Damon comes across the line, and that will be it. Well, I have to say, Damon, you are certainly not rubbish, mate. Mistakes happen. Don't beat yourself up. I wouldn't say beat yourself up. So here we go. John only just wins by less than 1/10 of a second from 10-10, with his teammate in third place. Mr. Wiggles loses out in fourth. So that, all things considered, with 19 points, with 259 versus Wiggles on 210, all he has to do, if Wiggles retires, if Wiggles and John both retire, he just needs 10th to secure the World Championship. So there we have it, folks. Here we have the top 10 point scoring positions for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We have John first in the McLaren. Brilliant drive from him. 10-10 finishes in second, with Top Gun third. 10-10 also getting the fastest lap. Wiggles in fourth. Deflated Wee in fifth. Richard is in sixth. Lonson is seventh in the Aston Martin. Good drive from him. Preb sits in eighth, with Colucci in ninth. Trollabolo sits in 10th in the AlphaTauri. Deaton, Girthy Steve and Greg sit in 11th, 12th, 13th respectively, with Padge in 14th. Richie M in 15th, with Techers in 16th. Damon in 17th, and Smaller Smiley retiring from this race. So there we have it, folks. Very interesting Grand Prix. Nice points haul for Williams in the Constructors. So just calculating the points now. John will sit on 201 points, with 10-10 on 259. So with 58 point difference, he's got to outscore 10-10 by 8 points to still be in with a fight for the championship. But I don't see it happening, if I'm being totally honest. His fight's really with Mr. Wiggles behind. So there we have it, folks. What a session that turned out to be. So thank you all so much for joining. It's just been a lonely stream for me so far, as unfortunately TD just wasn't around to do the stream with me. And but hopefully within the future we should have Killian from T81 as a streamer with us. So hopefully you guys will be looking forward to seeing that. And I'm certainly looking forward to sharing the com box with him at any given opportunity. So with that, guys, I'm going to bring this stream to a close. Thank you all very much for joining IIRL for the round 15 of 18 of the Saudi Arabian Championship. But 10-10 takes one more step closer to the World Championship with another consistent result. But as of now, today, it's certainly the future looking orange for John. What a day, what a drive from John. See you guys next time for round 16, in which we will be in Portugal in the Algarve. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you guys next week for a